It's really important that policymakers actually take the time to really listen to the voices of community members, and I think it helps when community members are coming from an evidence-based approach, so they really understand the issues that they've faced in their community, they've done it based on their research. The policymakers kind of pay attention to that as that intel into what's going on in the community, and then really think about kind of action points that they can kind of take forward with that.
My lived experience is being a young person. I guess I would feel most listened to if people actually did something about what I'm saying. Like, they take what I'm saying and they actually take actions to it rather than just keep talking about it. Because everyone keeps talking about things and everyone's asking the same questions, yet nothing is being done about it. And then we get asked the same questions again, and then it's like, I literally just answered these, what is being done about my answers?
So I think with policymakers and decision makers, for them to really take on board those with lived experiences, coming away from this consultation fatigue where we're consulted but not actually engaged with or listened to properly. The steps that we've been making through this work is, coming away from, we're going to consult you, but not necessarily listen to you, actually working more closely and having it far more place-based. So from that bottom-up approach, really listening to what's essential in those places and those with the lived experience.
As Scottish Youth Parliament, we have something called The Right Way, which we've set up to try and support and challenge decision makers to make sure that they're listening to us, and not just listening to us, they're actually acting on what young people say. So we believe it should look accessible, inclusive, and also be very meaningful. We also believe that, as well as listening to every young person, we think that decision makers try and make a conscious effort to reach seldom heard groups and those who may struggle to get their right across and use those rights that they have for freedom of expression and a voice.
I think that policymakers really need to listen to people with lived experience, because we all have lived experience. And those policymakers have their own lived experience and they will have a bias. What we need to do is hear a diversity of ranges of different voices and experiences and challenge some of the perceptions that we have as people that can make decisions and have power. And we also need to consider some of the things that maybe are inherent in the system that we need to change, that really create a power dynamic that means that it's very unequal. We need to consider things like equity. We need to consider what we can do to raise up voices that are more difficult to hear, find more places where they aren't heard. And I think that's what makes it really important that policymakers think about it, because lived experience leading that, they will help show the way, because they will tell you what needs to happen and when it needs to happen.
I think had you asked me that question a couple of years ago, I would have had a different answer. It would have probably been, we're not listened to ever, it's terrible, the world is nonsense. But I think something strange has happened in the dementia landscape. The new dementia strategy was shaped by a panel of people with lived experience. And when we saw the actual strategy, it was all reflected in there, so they really listened. And I think that was because we were by then a community of people that were prepared to talk about the questions that the government were looking to ask. So I do think we are beginning to see real traction on that front.